Psychological. Okay, there we go. Now it's recording. Okay. Hey guys, this is Bruce from the Latte Wellness Group, and this is just a quick clip from our group on psychological tools for mental health. We were talking about cognitive distortions. I'll give it up to Cinder now.
Right, thanks, Bruce. So let's look at the word cognitive distortions. What exactly is cognitive distortion? So basically, they're kind of like the automatic thought patterns that make us see things in a way that's not completely accurate. They're like little mental shortcuts that our brain uses, but sometimes these shortcuts bend the truth a little bit, if that makes sense. So like when we're tired or stressed or anxious, our brain can, exaggerate things or jump into conclusions. And it doesn't do it intentionally, but it's just the way that our brain tries to protect us. So today, let's go over the 9 common ones, and they might not all, connect with you, maybe 1 or 2, or maybe none. And that's okay. We're just here to get to know them a little bit better. And also remember, they're not good or bad. They're just patterns. And the more we can spot them, the more we can kind of try to soften them. All right, so let's go over the first one. All or nothing thinking. This is when we believe everything is either good or bad and there's nothing in between. So like seeing things black and white, or or success as failure, or thinking just if something isn't perfect, then we feel like it's an automatic disaster. And that could, in our heads, that could sound like, if I can't do it perfectly, then why even try? If I make one mistake, then I ruin everything. Or they either hate me or they like me. Right. So let me give an example. So say like you study really hard and you made a 90 on the test. And your first thought could be, oh, like I missed those 10 points and I didn't get an A. Right. So that is an example that some of us can relate to, especially the ones, that are in school, or even if you've been in school before and you've thought that. That's one of them.
Exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, exactly, Cinder. Thanks. The next one we have is filtering, which is, why don't we just go back and forth? We can ping pong.
Okay.
Sounds good. The next one we have is filtering, which is focusing on the negatives and ignoring the positives. An example for that could be, say you're doing a presentation at school and you slip over one word. The rest of the presentation goes great. You just focus on that one part that you did mess up, and you think, okay, the entire presentation was terrible. I'm going to fail. I'm doing really bad. And that's a really good example of how our thoughts can kind of really get that momentum going. And we have one negative thought, the entire thing turns negative. Or maybe you're at work and you messed up one thing at work, the entire day's done. It was just a terrible day. So that's filtering.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, let's hop on to the
One
next.
second, Miss Sindora. Can we open it up to the group here to maybe get real life experiences and see if anybody have experience?
Do you want to do that after each one?
Our next slide is actually that.
Okay. All right. Let's do this. Let's talk about it and then share.
Okay. So you'd like us to say the cognitive distortions and then ask the group?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way to do it. Okay, sorry guys. Yeah, if anybody from the group wants to jump in, there is a raise your hand feature on Google Meets, and you can just raise your hand, and then we will call on you. We're just going to do that to keep everything a little bit more structured so people don't talk over each other. Hopefully that works for everybody. So yeah, as Frank said, if anybody has examples of all or nothing thinking or filtering from real life experiences, just raise your hand and we'll let you guys share. Patience. Awesome. Yeah. What's up? Why don't you tell us?
I was actually raising my hand when you were explaining. I was kind of pointing to myself when you were
Oh,
explaining.
sorry.
And the example that you used is exactly what happened to me. That happened to me, I think, during my first year of grad school. We had like a whole presentation and I made one mistake. It was actually like a pronunciation of a word. I wasn't sure. It was one of these psych names. I couldn't pronounce it correctly. And then after that, I was just like, oh my goodness, I messed up. I messed up. I messed up. And people kept on telling me, you were great. Like the presentation was really nice. But I couldn't stop focusing on that one negative thing that happened. So yeah, I definitely identify with filtering.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, that's a really poignant example. Awesome.
I've definitely gone through that before as well. Like I'll catch a word that I didn't pronounce, especially a word that, I think I should know. But it also comes from, where we were raised, where we went to school and all of that, right? So thank you for sharing, Patience.
Great. Do you want to explain personalizing to us, Cinder?
Sure. Anybody else want to jump in and share anything for all or nothing thinking? Or filtering? Okay, all right. Well, let's move on to the next one, which is personalizing. It's pretty much when you unfairly blame yourself for anything that goes wrong. So it's almost like us taking responsibility for the things that aren't ours to actually carry. And that could sound like, oh, they're upset, it's probably my fault. Or the team didn't do well. Well, I should have done more. Maybe, it was my fault there. Or my friend didn't reply. Thinking about why not, maybe I said something wrong, maybe I did something to offend them or anything like that. So it's almost like making it about yourself. But if we could think, could it be something else? Like maybe my friend could have been busy, maybe she's at work and she's not able to get to her phone, right? Anybody else want to share? All right, Nikki, go ahead. Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Okay, there's something. Focus on the negatives. I never hit the mic. I'd like to talk about filtering really briefly. I had to do my presentation last night, and I know Bruce and Patience were there, so they'll know this is true. And I totally messed up on the sharing, and then I disconnected from the call, and then I found out I have 4 Gmail accounts, and my calendar's all over the place, so I couldn't find the link to get back. And I finally did, and Bruce was super helpful getting me back on track. And then when we were all done, I put my other computer up and then I practiced doing those things. And I had my son come in and help me. But all I could focus on was all the negatives instead of saying, wow, you've never even done Google Meets before. You always use Zoom. So you had to learn how to do that. And you never set up a Google Meets. And you never made a Canva presentation before. And you never learned how to insert videos before. So why don't you look at these positives instead of thinking, oh my gosh, you took so long to get this stuff together and you made everybody wait. And I thought, I had to say, that's why we have these practice meetings so we can get it together. So after I had practiced it myself, I say with my son's help, and I had to see the view on someone else's computer to realize what I was doing wrong. And so that's what we tend to do. We're like, oh my gosh, I messed this up, instead of, we all make mistakes, but look at the progress you made and look how many things you learned. And that's part of life, really, is to be active and learn new things, even if they're a struggle. So overall, it was good, but it was a struggle yesterday, for sure.
Thank you for sharing that, Nikki. That's actually a great insight. And a lot of us do it. And we kind of forget to, like you said, look at the positives. I've come this far. I've never done this before. I'm growing. I'm learning. Thank you for sharing that. I'm pretty sure a lot of us have experienced that as well.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Nikki. And yeah, don't worry, you did great yesterday. Okay, so the next one we have is mind reading. Assuming you know what others are thinking. So an example from this could be like, my boss didn't smile at me this morning. She must think I'm doing a bad job. And I think this one is a really poignant one for cognitive distortions, because cognitive distortions are how our internal kind of mind psychosphere state can influence how we see things. And mind reading is just kind of an extension of that, where we're looking at these situations, and instead of maybe taking a realistic or grounded perspective, we are assuming we know what's up because, you know, we think or we feel a certain way. So even if, like, maybe another example of this could be like, oh, you're walking down the street and you smile at a guy, he doesn't smile back, that guy hates me because I suck. In reality, he might not have even been looking at you. Does anybody have any examples of mind reading, you know, assuming you know what others are thinking from your personal life? Yeah, Nikki.
I just want to add one thing I taught my children growing up. They would come home from school and the same thing. My teacher hates me. My teacher, you know, was grouchy with me today. She's never going to call on me. And one thing I taught them is, you know, you have to remember you are not the center of anyone's world. They are not thinking about you 24/7. You don't know what's going on with their personal lives. Maybe they just had a bad day. You can't read their mind and know what's going on. So I think that's a good way to tie it in, especially for kids, because they always think it's something they did personally, and it's not.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It can feel like we are the center of our own world sometimes, and it's good to take a step back from that sometimes. Exactly.
Yeah, that also kind of reminds me of, you know, don't take it personal, because not everything is about us in that moment, right? I mean, the other day, I would, like, for me, when I hold the door open, it's almost like, and, you know, I had to remind myself, well, if somebody doesn't say thank you, that's okay. If somebody doesn't smile, that's okay. You know, I'm pretty sure, because most of us have a lot going on, and a lot of people are not present. You know, even when they're walking, we have a lot of things on our mind. So yeah, thank you, Nikki. Thank you for sharing. And that's a really amazing thing to teach your kids, especially at a young age, so they're aware of it and they know, right? All right. If anybody else, well, if nobody has nothing to say about that one, we will move on to catastrophizing. So that's when you're imagining that potential negative consequences will be disastrous, right? So that's when kind of like our mind jumps into the worst case scenario, like something small happens and suddenly our brain is making like a full-blown disaster movie out of it. Well, let's see, like a simple example for that could be, you know, maybe you spill your coffee and you immediately think, well, great, like now I'm going to be late and my boss will be mad and I might just lose my job. So it simply just means that, you know, we're imagining the worst possible outcome, even when it's highly unlikely.
Yeah, that's a really good example of how things can kind of spiral out of control, and you get that kind of thinking like, I made one mistake at work, I'm gonna get fired, I'm never gonna find a job, I'll be homeless. Like, just can really get away from us sometimes. Or my girlfriend didn't text me back, she's definitely gonna break up with me.
That's a really good
I'm
one
gonna
too.
get another girl ever. Yeah.
Anybody else have like a recent moment that where your mind might have just jumped to the worst case scenario? Yes, Chica. Sorry, I think
Okay. Oh yeah. So I think if I don't have a particular scenario because it's a lot, you know, but I know that what I do, like in my life, everything I have, I've worked for, you know. So, but sometimes I tend to tell myself, oh, I've worked so hard, harder than what every other, like harder than the next person. Like, you know, I tend to think that things come to people more easily than it comes to me. So for me, I have to work extra hard to get what comes to me. And then when it doesn't happen, you know, like if that result is not measurable to my hard work, I just tend to think like, oh yeah, you see, like that's what happens all the time. It always goes bad. When it comes to my turn, it goes bad. So I tend to think that a lot, like over and over and over again. So, and like I said, especially when the hard work I think I put in did not match the result. Yeah, I start catastrophizing. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's a great example.
Our next one is overgeneralizing, which is reaching a conclusion about one event, then applying it to everything. An example of that could be, I failed my driving test. I'll never be good at anything. I failed, or I got a bad mark in school. I'm never going to get a good mark again. Somebody didn't say what's up to me at the grocery store. Nobody's ever going to talk to me again. This one's very similar to catastrophizing. In fact, a lot of these there's a lot of overlap here, but I think the main theme is really like having that one negative thought and then just going forward with it, keeping that momentum, which is definitely something we want to be avoiding. Does anybody have any examples of this? Or okay, let's hop over to emotional reasoning then. Sandora, would you like to explain that one?
Yes, absolutely. So emotional reasoning is pretty much believing something is true because you feel like it's true. So let's for example say I feel guilty, so I must have done something wrong. Or a very common one could be I feel anxious, so something bad is about to happen, is going to happen, right? And that could be like with Nikki's example of case presentation, and it's easy to spiral. And yeah. So another example could be, if I feel unloved, then everybody probably hates me.
Yeah, believing something is true because you feel it is true is really tough, especially when you are in a negative headspace, be that anxiety, depression, obsessive thoughts, really any of those. It can be really hard when you have that kind of lens on to take a step back.
Anybody want to share any of their thoughts about emotional reasoning? All right, if not, we can move on to the next one, which is labeling.
So labeling is reducing yourself or others to a single characteristic and letting that characteristic kind of define you or others. Maybe you're having issues with your spouse and you're just thinking, and she is a nag. She will not get off my case. And you look past all the other things, all the reasons you're with your partner, all the great experiences you've had together, and you just reduce it to, yeah, she's a nag. She gets on my case way too much. That's it. Or maybe you're thinking about yourself and you just think, I am a socially awkward guy. I'm awkward and I can't communicate with others very well. And that's it. Where in reality, you probably have a bunch of traits, ideas, thoughts, knowledge that it takes you beyond that label. I was speaking to a person who just recently, and she was saying, I'm just a single mother. I'm just a mother. That is it. Why would anybody want to be my friend or socialize with me? I'm just a mom. That's all I know. When in reality, she had all this crazy knowledge about all this like really interesting, like nerdy stuff and like video games or like movies and stuff like that. And that's where you can make friends. That is the common ground you can have. You're not just one single characteristic.
Does anybody have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Any examples of that, whether you've labeled yourself or labeled others? Yes,
Yeah.
Nikki.
Okay, I want to talk about my daughter, not myself here. Her dad died when she was 13 years old, and it was during the summer, so she had to go back to school, and we decided to stay in the area where we lived. And she was going from elementary school to middle school. And she's like, I don't want you to tell anybody what happened because I don't want to be the girl whose dad died. And which was so poignant thinking back on that. And I said, but you are the girl whose dad died, but that doesn't define you. And that's not the only thing that Grace is. I mean, you're the ballet dancer, you're the girl that loves dogs, you're the pretty girl that can braid anyone's hair, and you're a beautiful artist. And, we had to work on that a lot, but I think that's a good example of people just saying, I'm only good at this. I only, like Bruce said, I'm the mom, I'm the dancer, or the girl whose dad died. And none of us are just one characteristic.
Yeah, thank you. That is a really good point. And I liked your point of that I'm only good at this one thing. I think that applies to a lot of people that are like, maybe maybe you play sports, maybe you're a professional, maybe you're this, maybe you're that. And you think, yeah, that's all I am. But yeah, in reality, people are vastly multifaceted. That's great.
It kind of helps us learn that, just because of that one negative or the labeling that we're giving ourselves, we almost forget all the other parts of us. And as you mentioned, the one thing does not define any of us. And that was a great example of your daughter. Thank you for sharing that. All right, let's move on to the next one, should statements. And I think a lot of people could resonate with this one. So should statements are thinking in terms of what should be done or that what should have been said, right? So this is often based on rules learned within the family. So it's almost like it's about the pressure we put on ourselves or others with like rigid expectations out of it. So for example, I should go to the gym 5 times a week. I should attend this program, right? It kind of leaves us with no option there. And something to think about here is what happens if you can change the should to could? Anybody have a should sentence that they tell themselves? And we can maybe try to word it and see how the could statement should sound or can sound. All right. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no. Your example last time was really good. I'll let you go.
What example was that?
I don't know. I just remember you resonated super hard with this one when I was presenting earlier in the week. If you don't want, I can just throw out a random one.
No, I mean, okay, so for me, growing up in the culture that I did, they have definitely been a lot of shoulds. You should make an A. If you don't, then it's automatically feeling like a failure, because the first thing in my family, they would be the ones that's like, where did the other 5 points go? So instead of, telling myself I should make an A, I could, frame that as I could make an A. And that wording right there kind of gives me flexibility to work with. So I'm not putting a rigid expectation on myself.
Yeah, that is a very good gem there. Giving yourself flexibility and giving yourself grace, I think is a huge one, especially when, like for me at least, I am my own like hardest boss, especially if I can schedule myself, I can work autonomously, I can do all this. I'm gonna work all day long. Where maybe instead of thinking like, okay, I have an assignment due on the 23rd. I should get it done. What day is it today? The 5th? I should get it done by the end of the week. I should get it done by the 10th. Where in reality, we could just say, I could get it done. And that gives you a little bit of breathing room. And whether it gets done, whether it gets 75% done, at least there was a little bit of work because as you know, we can't have that momentum of thinking terribly about stuff. We can also have that momentum of doing good for something, you know. I should go to the gym 5 days this week. If I hit 4, if I could go to the gym 5 days this week and I hit 4, that's still pretty good. You know, you're getting that positive momentum going. And as easy it is for it to get negative momentum going, whether it be with all or nothing thinking or catastrophizing or overgeneralizing, it's also easy to get that positive momentum going.
That was a great example, Bruce. I think a lot of us, you know, well, at least me, I definitely do the gym. And more lately, I'm like, I always say, oh, I should go to this class, or I should go sit in the steam room, whatever that may be. But then when I started telling myself, you know what, I could do that, it just automatically feels lighter. Like it doesn't sound like a chore almost. Like, at least for me, when I start saying I should do this, it kind of almost becomes like a list of chores that I have to do. And that doesn't give me a lot of options or flexibility. And it definitely feels like, you know, the should statements feel like you're being harder on yourself than you need to be. And like Bruce said, you know, giving yourself some grace, thinking about everything that we have done, and changing that statement to could would really be helpful.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything to share, or do you guys want to move on?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're taking questions yet.
You know what? Let me just stop the recording and then I will answer all questions.